What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? It's your boy Light, Luciferian Prince, coming at y'all once again. I want to touch on a very trending topic, so to speak, but I want to elaborate after I read on the article that was posted. And I want y'all to know that the premise that I'm coming from is not biased, nor is it self-opinionated. It's factual, and it is very informative because what I'm getting ready to say is rooted in all truth and bases in this country. But before I put the carriage before the horse, I want to read on this article, something that just happened yesterday. And it's about a very touchy subject, within this country, although it's a very prevalent subject that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in this country. It's ever present. It's never leaving anywhere. It is what it is. It's the fabric of this continent. Period. There's an Idaho governor who signs a bill to ban critical race theory from being taught in schools. The theory states that racism is embedded in U.S. history and modern American law, and that legal institutions are inherently racist. Let me read that one more time. The definition in layman's terms of what critical race theory is. Theory states that racism is embedded in U.S. history and modern American law, and that legal institutions are inherently racist. Before I proceed, people, there is no theory to that. America is a very racist country. I don't give a fuck what Coon Tim Scott said. I don't give a fuck what that prostitute Kamala Harris said. Yeah. I don't care how Biden tries to dance around it. I don't give a fuck. All these people do not speak for the culture. America is racist. It is prejudiced. It is racist. It is rotten to its core. And the reason why they want to eliminate this being taught in schools is because they don't want your children today to know the truth. But before I go further, let me read the article. Idaho's Governor Brad Little has a bill signed into law that aims to restrict critical race theory from being taught as a subject in schools and universities. The bill, H377, prevents teachers from indoctrinating, and we're going to put that word in quotation marks, students into belief systems that claim as members of any race, sex, religion, ethnicity, or national origin are inferior or superior to other groups. Signed into law last week, H377 also makes it illegal to make students affirm, adopt, or adhere to beliefs that members of these groups are today responsible for past actions of the groups to which they claim to belong. Definition. Critical race theory is a concept developed by academics and leading scholars of jurisprudence within intellectual origins in the 1960s, which were organized officially in the late 1980s. The theory states that racism is embedded both in U.S. history and modern American law. It holds that legal institutions in the U.S. are inherently racist. Often abbreviated as CRT, it seeks to challenge racism and improve equitable racial power through legal reform. Equitable treatment under law for all races, according to the theory, renders the law incapable of recognizing systemic and indirect racial practices. In the bill transmittal letter to Idaho's Republican House Speaker, Scott Bedke, Little, who is also a Republican, cited the undermining of trust in local governance of our public schools and popular support for public education in Idaho as concerns. We must be focused on facts and data, not anecdotes and innuendo, Little wrote in the letter. Since the publication of the 1619 Project in the New York Times, a number of school districts and school boards across the U.S. have begun to adopt elements of critical race theory in their curricula. As a result, Republican state legislatures have begun to push back, sending bills to state houses that attempt to quell the momentum of teaching slavery and other such movements of American history as dark periods of the country's past that continue to affect American life today. Bills to ban or restrict the teaching of critical race theory and other subjects deemed divisive have been drafted in Iowa, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, West Virginia, and other states such as Texas. Bills have already passed in Utah, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Those who know geographics and demographics know exactly that's not an accident. The Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has recently spoken out against the 1619 Project specifically, as if anybody gives a fuck about him. Fucking rubber-faced son of a bitch. As the Biden administration is considering $5.3 million in American history and civics education grants for anti-racist scholarship. In a letter to U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, McConnell wrote that the families in the U.S. did not ask for this divisive nonsense, and that a decision to move forward was not made by voters. Americans never decided our children should be taught that our country is inherently evil, McConnell wrote. Notice what he said. It's a duplicitous statement. Americans never decided our children should be taught that our country is inherently evil. Seems like somebody realized the truth, right? The UCLA and Columbia law professor Kimberly Crenshaw disagrees, telling CNN last year that the 1619 Project was an approach to grappling with the history of white supremacy that rejects the belief that what is in the past is in the past, and that the laws and systems that grow from it of the past are detached from it. According to the Organization of American Historians, which is the nation's largest organization of professional U.S. history, scholars, there are a myriad of injustices that must be addressed and acknowledged if any serious historical inquiries into oppression related to gender, ethnicity, class, and race are to occur. Well, critical race theory provides a lens to which we can examine and understand systemic racism and its many consequences, the organization said in a statement released last year. The history we teach must investigate the core conflict between a nation founded on radical notions of liberty, freedom, and equality, and a nation built on slavery, exploitation, and exclusion. We have a small favor to ask across the U.S. and around the world. Millions rely on The Guardian for independent journalism that stands for truth and integrity. The Guardian has no shareholders or billionaire owners to please, and we invest every penny we earn into our journalism. Readers choose to support us financially more than 1.5 million times in 2020, joining existing supporters in over 180 countries. So this is basically the newspaper that it's written from, which is basically The Guardian. And it goes on to basically talk about the aim and their mission statement for their particular paper. And this is the source that I'm actually reading from. So, as they say, they're not controlled by any quote-unquote monopolization of a private select corporate elite. But choose the sources as you will. Now, here comes the enlightened Luciferian approach to the utter incomplete nonsense to what these people are trying to perpetrate. In other words, people, you have to realize, I myself, as being in my mid-30s, or let's say early 30s, let's say, I had to literally undo so much of the harm and the taint of the public education system, because what they taught me in my younger years was the same thing that we're basically battling with today. The only problem with it as today is that they know that with the access and the freedom of information that comes with the access to the internet and other third-party sources of information, people are starting to learn the truth. See, when I was growing up, they often taught the indoctrinative pattern to basically trust the government, so forth and so on. It's your duty to vote, go to school, the normal pattern of indoctrination. Normal. All of that was systemically instituted to keep people in a state of passive obedience. You have to also understand that our forebears and our generation of people that came had little to no access to this particular type of information. So that means that our parents, and so forth and so on have only been led either by a personal cultural decision in regards to their own well-being and their own mores and their own folk ways, or they were indoctrinated by the United States system to make them believe and buy into believing that the system is right. What it also does, it also makes children challenge these same institutions, because now they can clearly see that there is an inequality within regards to how one group or certain groups of people are looked at, as opposed to an opposing group who actually is supposed to be the inclusive bunch, but receive all the quote unquote benefits from that same oppressive system. Is what we also call today is also known as white privilege. Yes, people, this is the way that we win by taking our children out of these facilities, because what they're trying to do is to try to put a little bit of spackle over that hole of information in which the digital revolution has led many people to actually realize that they don't have to rely on one person's word or a group of the so-called academia establishment to determine their life's choices. See, it's called critical for a reason. Critical because it gives you an analysis to think about what has been placed upon your conscience to make you operate within this construct we call United States. They don't want that. Here's another thing. They're losing their minds because they know for a fact that we, as people in this continent, we have to realize that the only way people can be controlled is by a limitation and control of how knowledge is disseminated. So if they put these bills into effect, that's not obligatory on the parents of the children who are learning. It's obligatory on the state actors, also called teachers, who receive their funds from the state coffers. So if you wish for your children to attend these schools and these universities, that's your business. It's your choice. Just don't be mad when they come out brainwashed, believing in the indoctrinative pattern that the United States government is correct. Do not be upset. Now, a lot of people might not agree with what I'm saying, but what you have to agree with is that what I'm simply telling you is very significantly true. They want your children pliant and they want them obedient, and what they're trying to do through execution of law is to try to make these laws implement and work upon the state actors in order to keep them in line and tow, to keep your children stupid about what this country really is. If you're my age or older, and those who are younger, I'm not discounting them either, because there are a lot of smart younger individuals in the previous generation. If you're at this age, you know that this country is full of shit. You see what I'm saying? Period. I have no shame in saying it. It is what it is. I am too old to try to sit here and toe the line and make it seem as if this country ain't full of shit. It was just recently in the 60s where there were actually people who were held against their will post emancipation to actually still work as sharecroppers against their will without pay. That's slavery. And this was in the 60s now. Come on, people. We have to take it into strict consideration that these things are very important to study if you are ever going to have a functional and a true existence in society as far as furthering yourself. But I'm not going to put it all in this one video because this is far too much of a topic to try to squeeze into 15 minutes. But you just learned a very significant truth in less than 13. We need to pay more attention to the past because we cannot let these lawmakers and these other people sit here and try to be the harbingers of our personal destiny. Yes, we need to start studying history critically and start calling these people out on their racial institutions and their divisiveness that they implemented in their system. We're just reacting to what was placed against us, and we will do it accordingly. We will go about it accordingly, and we will not have someone else try to muffle our voices or our consciousness with a swipe of a pen and just because they hold public office. Fuck that. You can teach your children whatever you wish to teach them, and you can teach them correctly if you know what the correct notion to teach your children is. Fuck public school. It ain't worth shit. It's designed to make your children worker bees anyway, and it's not designed for them to have their own self-fulfillment. It is what it is. That's the way it is. Period. Now, people who want to believe in a socialistic compromise and make it seem as if these people are correct, please cut this video off. It is what it is, not for you. But what I will say is this. I won't send my children to no bullshit like that because you're not going to have my children being divided against their own consciousness about what the truth is and what your lies are that you're teaching them in school. Because we know what the truth is, people. Stay woke. Stay woke. Stay aware. Because trust me, the enemy doesn't sleep. But they work hard, but we will work harder. You follow what I'm saying? Peace, light, love. Stay tuned for part 2 in this particular series because there's a lot more that comes with this. Y'all stay tuned.